There is no spoon?
There is no spoon? The Matrix wasn't just a groundbreaking sci-fi thriller, it was a production nightmare that nearly destroyed careers, shattered bones, and revolutionized cinema through sheer force of will. The Wachowski sisters didn't just direct a movie, they orchestrated a rebellion against Hollywood itself. Studios rejected their vision. A-list actors fled from the project, stunt doubles were hospitalized, and somehow, from this chaos, emerged one of the most influential films ever made. Today, we're diving deep into 20 weird facts about The Matrix that will make you question everything you thought you knew about this digital masterpiece. Plus, stick around for our bonus fact that reveals the most shocking secret the Wachowskis kept hidden for decades. Let's jack into the real story behind The Matrix. Will Smith's multi-million-dollar mistake. Will Smith turned down the role of Neo, calling it too weird and admitting he didn't understand the concept. What audiences didn't know was that Smith walked away from what would become one of cinema's most iconic characters because he couldn't wrap his head around the Wachowskis' revolutionary vision. Instead, he chose to make Wild Wild West, which became one of the biggest box office disasters of his career. The irony cuts deep. While Keanu Reeves was learning martial arts and philosophy, Smith was strapping on mechanical spider legs in a steampunk wasteland. This wasn't just a career misstep. It was a glimpse into how radically different The Matrix was from anything Hollywood had seen before. The Johnny Depp that never was. Before Keanu Reeves ever donned the iconic black trench coat, Johnny Depp was the Wachowskis' first choice for Neo. The studio executives pushed hard for Depp, seeing his unconventional appeal as perfect for the role. But Depp's agent reportedly felt the script was too confusing and steered him away from the project. What's fascinating is how different Neo would have been in Depp's hands, more eccentric, more theatrical. Instead of Reeves's zen-like stillness, we might have gotten Depp's trademark quirky mannerisms. The casting change wasn't just about swapping actors, it fundamentally altered the character's entire energy and the film's spiritual core. The stunt double who nearly died for The Matrix. Chad Stahelski, Keanu Reeves' stunt double, became a human crash test dummy during the subway fight scene with Agent Smith. When Neo slams Smith into the ceiling, it was Stahelski who took the devastating impact. The result? Broken ribs, shattered knees, and a dislocated shoulder that required months of recovery. But here's the kicker, Stahelski kept performing stunts even while injured, determined not to delay production. What audiences see as seamless action was actually filmed around a man's broken body. The irony is perfect. While the movie explored the illusion of physical reality, the stunt team was experiencing very real physical trauma. Stahelski later became a legendary stunt coordinator and director, but his sacrifice for The Matrix remains largely unknown. Carrie-Anne Moss's wirework torture. Carrie-Anne Moss endured months of brutal wirework training that left her body in constant agony. The actress spent up to 8 hours a day suspended on cables, learning to fight gravity itself. What audiences didn't know was that the harnesses cut into her skin, leaving permanent marks and bruises that had to be covered with makeup. Moss later described the training as psychological torture because she's naturally afraid of heights. Yet she performed nearly all her own stunts, including the famous wall-running sequence. The elegant Trinity audiences fell in love with was born from Moss literally hanging by wires, fighting through panic attacks and physical pain. Her grace under pressure wasn't just acting, it was survival. The Keanu Reeves spinal surgery secret. Keanu Reeves underwent major spinal surgery just months before filming began, making his intensive martial arts training not just difficult, but potentially dangerous. The actor had to relearn basic movement while simultaneously mastering complex fight choreography. What's remarkable is that Reeves never used his injury as an excuse to scale back the physical demands. Instead, he worked with physical therapists and martial arts masters to adapt his movements around his limitations. Every kick, every jump, every bullet time sequence was performed by a man whose spine was held together by surgical hardware. The result is that Neo's awakening in the Matrix mirrors Reeves' own physical resurrection, both learning to transcend the limitations of their bodies. The Wachowski sisters' studio war? The Wachowski sisters fought a brutal war with Warner Brothers executives who wanted to sanitize their vision. Studio heads demanded the removal of philosophical dialogue, the toning down of violence, and the casting of bigger names. The sisters refused every compromise, threatening to walk away from the project entirely. What audiences didn't know was that the studio secretly commissioned a backup script from another writer, preparing to replace the Wachowskis if negotiations broke down. The tension reached such heights that security was called to several meetings. The Matrix we know exists only because two filmmakers were willing to destroy their careers rather than compromise their vision. Every frame of the final film is a victory against corporate interference. Hugo Weaving's voice that almost wasn't. Hugo Weaving's chilling Agent Smith voice was nearly dubbed by another actor because studio executives found his Australian accent too exotic for American audiences. The Wachowskis had to fight to preserve Weaving's natural delivery, arguing that Smith's otherness was essential to the character. What's brilliant is that Weaving developed Smith's distinctive speech pattern by studying computer-generated voices and corporate executives. The result is a performance that's simultaneously human and mechanical, perfectly embodying the artificial intelligence he portrays. Without the sisters' intervention, one of cinema's most memorable villains would have sounded like just another generic bad guy. Smith's voice became iconic precisely because it was almost silenced. The bullet time that nearly broke physics. The revolutionary bullet time effect required 120 still cameras arranged in a perfect circle, each triggered in sequence to create the illusion of time manipulation. But the system was so complex that it frequently malfunctioned, destroying entire sequences and forcing expensive reshoots. What audiences see as seamless digital magic was actually the result of countless technical failures and innovations. The camera rig itself weighed over 2 tons and required a team of engineers to operate. When it worked, it captured moments that had never been filmed before. When it failed, it created explosions of shattered glass and twisted metal that endangered the entire crew. The Matrix didn't just bend the rules of cinema, it nearly broke them entirely. Laurence Fishburne's Morpheus method. Laurence Fishburne transformed himself into Morpheus by studying Eastern philosophy and meditation techniques for months before filming. The actor read everything from Plato's cave to Buddhist texts, becoming genuinely philosophical about the nature of reality. What's remarkable is that Fishburne's preparation went beyond intellectual study. He actually began questioning his own perceptions, sometimes unsure whether experiences were real or imagined. His co-stars reported that Fishburne would remain in character between takes, speaking in Morpheus's measured cadence and offering cryptic wisdom. The result is a performance that feels authentically mystical rather than merely theatrical. Fishburne didn't just play a man who questioned reality, he became one. The green tint that almost ruined everything? The Matrix's signature green tint was so subtle that it required special processing that nearly destroyed the film stock. Cinematographer Bill Pope fought with the lab technicians who insisted the color correction was impossible without damaging the negative. The process had to be calibrated frame by frame, with entire reels ruined when the chemical balance shifted slightly. What audiences see as a cohesive visual style was actually achieved through hundreds of hours of meticulous color work that pushed 1990s technology to its absolute limits. Go ahead and like and subscribe because we're about to reveal even more shocking secrets that show how The Matrix almost never made it to theaters. The green world of The Matrix exists only because a cinematographer was willing to risk destroying the entire film for his artistic vision. The Zion Cave set that flooded. The massive Zion Cave set, built in an abandoned aircraft hangar, was destroyed by flooding just days before crucial scenes were scheduled to be filmed. Heavy rains overwhelmed the drainage systems, turning the futuristic underground city into a literal lake. The production team had to work around the clock with industrial pumps, but the water damage was so extensive that entire sections had to be rebuilt. What's remarkable is that the Wachowskis incorporated the flooding into the story, using the water damage to create the lived-in, weathered look of humanity's last city. The desperation audiences feel in Zion isn't just acted, it's the real desperation of a crew racing against time and natural disaster. Sometimes the best movie magic comes from embracing catastrophe rather than fighting it. The Nebuchadnezzar ship interior was claustrophobic by design. The interior of Morpheus's ship was deliberately built too small for the actors, creating genuine feelings of claustrophobia and tension. The ceiling height was calculated to make everyone except the shortest cast members feel compressed and uncomfortable. What audiences interpret as the cramped conditions of humanity's survival was actually the result of careful psychological manipulation by the production designers. The actors' discomfort is real. You can see it in their postures, their interactions, and their constant sense of being trapped. Even during breaks, cast members would escape to larger spaces just to breathe freely. The Nebuchadnezzar doesn't just look like a submarine running from machines. It feels like one because the actors were genuinely experiencing that claustrophobic pressure. The Animatrix Connection that predated everything. The Wachowskis had planned the Animatrix anthology years before The Matrix was even greenlit, envisioning the film as just one piece of a massive multimedia universe. What audiences didn't know was that several anime sequences were storyboarded before the live-action scenes, with the film's visual style directly influenced by Japanese animation techniques. The sisters showed anime clips to their cinematographer and production designers as reference material, essentially reverse engineering live action from animation. This wasn't an adaptation, it was a translation across mediums. The Matrix's unique visual language exists because two filmmakers were thinking in multiple formats simultaneously, creating a hybrid that had never been attempted before. The Oracle's kitchen was Martha Stewart's nightmare. Gloria Foster's Oracle kitchen scenes were filmed in a practical set that actually functioned as a working kitchen, complete with running water and working appliances. But the set was built so shoddily that everything constantly broke down. The oven caught fire during one take, filling the soundstage with smoke. The refrigerator's motor was so loud that it ruined dialogue recordings. What audiences see as the warm, homey heart of Zion was actually a dysfunctional nightmare that required constant repair. Foster had to deliver her philosophical monologues while dodging sparking electrical wires and malfunctioning appliances. The Oracle's wisdom about fate and choice was delivered by an actress who couldn't control her own environment, a perfect metaphor that was entirely unintentional. The rooftop jump that broke Keanu Reeves. The famous rooftop training jump that Neo fails was nearly Keanu Reeves's last scene. The actor insisted on performing the stunt himself, despite the 30-foot gap between buildings. When Reeves missed the landing by inches, he crashed into the building's edge, sustaining injuries that required immediate medical attention. What's remarkable is that the Wachowskis kept the failed jump in the film, with Neo's bloody mouth being Reeves' actual blood. The line, "Your mind makes it real," takes on new meaning when you know the actor was genuinely hurt. Reeves's commitment to authenticity nearly ended his participation in the film, but it also created one of the movie's most visceral moments. Sometimes, The best acting isn't acting at all. The red pill was actually candy. The famous red and blue pills were actually colored candy that Laurence Fishburne had to palm and present dozens of times during multiple takes. But the candy kept melting under the hot stage lights, creating sticky messes that ruined the dramatic moment. The props department tried everything from jello to plastic, but nothing looked right on camera. What audiences see as a pivotal philosophical choice was actually achieved through countless ruined takes and frustrated actors dealing with dissolving props. Fishburne later joked that he consumed more sugar during those scenes than in his entire adult life. The choice between truth and illusion was literally sweet, but achieving that sweetness was bitter work. The Sentinels were hand-animated nightmares. The terrifying Sentinel machines were created through a combination of practical puppets and early CGI that required animators to work 18-hour days for months. Each tentacle had to be individually animated frame by frame, with the computer technology barely capable of rendering the complex movements. What audiences see as seamless mechanical menace was actually the result of artists pushing 1990s technology beyond its breaking point. The rendering process was so intensive that computer servers regularly overheated and crashed, destroying hours of work. The Sentinels' nightmarish quality comes partly from the nightmarish conditions their creators endured. The machines hunting humanity were born from humans being hunted by impossible deadlines and failing technology. The construct loading program was minimalist genius. The famous white void construct, where Neo learns kung fu, was created not from sophisticated technology, but from budget limitations. The Wachowskis couldn't afford elaborate digital environments, so they designed a space that was intentionally empty. What looks like advanced virtual reality was actually a white soundstage with strategic lighting. The minimalism that audiences interpret as futuristic design was born from financial desperation. But the constraints created innovation. The emptiness became a character itself, representing the blank slate of potential. Sometimes the most memorable movie magic comes from having no money rather than unlimited budgets. The Matrix's digital world was more convincing because it acknowledged its own artificiality. The Zion rave scene nearly caused a riot. The massive rave scene in Zion required over 8,000 extras who were told to dance continuously for 12 hours. But the combination of intense lighting, deafening music, and physical exhaustion caused several people to collapse from heat stroke and dehydration. What audiences see as ecstatic celebration was actually bordering on dangerous chaos. Security had to constantly monitor the crowd for medical emergencies while trying to maintain the scene's energy. The raw, primal energy on screen is real because people were literally pushing their bodies to the breaking point. The scene works because it captures genuine human intensity, even though that intensity nearly became genuinely dangerous. Sometimes the best crowd scenes come from actual crowds in actual distress. The Matrix code was actually Sushi Recipes. The iconic falling green code that represents the Matrix was created by production designer Simon Whiteley, who used his wife's sushi cookbook as source material. The Japanese characters scrolling down the screen aren't a profound computer language. They're instructions for making salmon rolls and tempura. What audiences interpret as the fundamental language of digital reality is actually a dinner menu. Whiteley chose Japanese characters because they looked appropriately mysterious to Western audiences, never imagining that fans would try to decode the hidden messages. The Matrix's deepest secret is that there is no secret, just a hungry designer who grabbed the nearest book of symbols. The profound mystery of digital existence is revealed to be remarkably mundane, which might be the most Matrix-like revelation of all. Bonus fact: The Matrix was always intended as a transgender allegory, with Neo's journey from Thomas Anderson to The One representing the sister's own experiences with gender transition. The red pill represents hormone replacement therapy, the rejection of assigned identity, and the painful but liberating process of becoming your true self. What audiences saw as a story about virtual reality was actually the Wachowskis telling their own story of transitioning from their assigned identities to their authentic selves. The film's themes of awakening, transformation, and rejecting false realities take on profound new meaning when viewed through this lens. The Matrix wasn't just science fiction, it was autobiography disguised as philosophy, with two directors sharing their most personal journey through the language of machines and digital rebellion. The Matrix wasn't just a movie that changed cinema, it was a production that nearly destroyed everyone involved in making it. From broken bones to studio battles, from flooded sets to melting pills, every frame represents a small victory against impossible odds. The film that taught us to question reality was born from a reality so chaotic that fiction seemed more believable. What makes The Matrix truly revolutionary isn't its special effects or philosophical depth. It's the fact that it exists at all. Against every rational prediction, through every production disaster, two filmmakers and their dedicated cast and crew willed into existence a movie that redefined what cinema could be. Which of these facts shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes secrets that prove the truth is always stranger than fiction. Remember, there is no spoon, but there were definitely a lot of broken bones.